Welcome to 13 Yarn's Strong Mind, Strong Mob podcast, where First Nation voices lead the conversation around mental health, connection, and community. This series is a space for sharing stories that matter. You'll hear from mob across the country, and we yarn about the hard stuff, the healing, and the hope. If you or someone you know are feeling worried or no good, call 13 Yarn on 13 92 76 for a confidential yarn with an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander crisis supporter, 24/7. This episode is proudly brought to you by 13 Yarn and QLIFE, anonymous and free LGBTIQ+ peer support. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
So I'm Jai from 13 Yarn. We are here today. I've brought some Deadly Mob together. Our aim today is to help promote some resources for our LGBTQIASB mob. We've got QLIFE on board with us, the lovely Ricky here to represent QLIFE.
Hi everyone, I'm Ricky Spencer. My pronouns are she and her. A First Nations health sociologist with QLIFE. I'm from the Stolen generation, and I'm a proud trans woman living with disabilities, and so excited to be here with all you wonderful people and talking about how we can make space safer for rainbow mob throughout Australia with wonderful resources. Thank you, John, for having us.
Deadly, thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a trans guy. I'm from originally born in Perth, but I'm living in Sydney. And I'm just here to have a chat about mental health and be part of the yarn.
Deadly, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Walawani, I'm Ginny Jane, proud Wiradjuri Walbunja woman from the Yuin Nation. My pronouns are she, her, lovely.
Yes, love that. I love that.
And I'm here to yarn too around mental health and what it is for our LGBTQ+SB mob.
Awesome.
My name's Cameron. I'm from the Dungari Nation, from Mid-North Coast, Kempsey. I'm a proud gay man. My partner is Jai. But yeah, here to have a yarn and talk about, mob and what we can do and help with resources and stuff like that.
So my name's Sammy, originally from Far North Queensland, family's from Darwin, another girl from Palm Island, but I was raised and born here in Sydney. I'm a proud trans woman. I've been living in Sydney for pretty much all my life. Just here to support and just give some input around the support that mob needs within the LGBTQ+SB community.
Deadly. I'm a proud gay man from northwest New South Wales, the Gamilaraid Nation. And I've just brought some mob together today to yarn about resources, yarn about, being black and queer in the community.
And what I'm really excited, Joe, is the fact you brought us with all different age spaces. Here I am, somebody almost ending my 60s, and from the Stolen Gen, so you're representing a group of people who still try and find their way home.
Yes.
And I think that's so important. It speaks to that. And those like myself who have affirmed themselves as trans later in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important.
Yeah, that's right.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to kick off, one of the sort of things that I did want to yarn about today is it getting easier for us mob in our own community? You know what I mean? Like, is it getting better being 2025? Or, you know what I mean? I know there's still barriers there, but, what's your thoughts on that?
Honestly, okay, that's an interesting question. For me, I think it's getting a bit harder. The way I've been met by some mob is been a little bit with confusion and kind of like, how does that sit? How can you be proud of being mob, but also proud of being trans at the same time?
Yeah.
So for me, I found it's a mixture of positives and negatives.
Yeah.
And
that's another thing I sort of want to capture today too, is positives and negatives. Hopefully there's lots of positives we can talk about.
Yeah.
I think there will be, but that's why we can all have our own little thoughts on that today too.
Coming from where I come from, there are still a little bit slow and, aren't up with times and things like that. And talking about being gay or queer or trans or anything like that isn't really a conversation that's usually had amongst your families. Everyone just sort of, we don't talk about that. It's not a conversation that constantly gets had. So we run away in a sense to create our own families. And that's what I sort of did in Sydney. Like I grew up in Queensland until I was about 17. then come down to Sydney. Started to find myself, find who I was, and then found my community amongst the LGBTQIASB community and, started to feel more connected.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you sort of sit. I had a lot of people that are older than me, a few people that were younger than me, but I always looked up to the older queer community.
Yeah.
Because they were my, I suppose, my mentors in how to navigate life and how to respect myself as a person. So yeah, I think it's only as hard as it is depending on your surroundings, I guess, and where you put yourself.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel the pressure in our community that you need to disclose everything, who you are, where you're from. But what I feel and I struggle with sometimes too is that for some of us who've been rejected all our lives, even from the adopted families we've had, who are told that you're ugly, you're hate, and all this stuff, we're frightened that if we take the next step of reconnecting, and then if mob hate us or disgusted, I don't want a trans daughter, didn't ask for that. It means so much to me meeting new people because it's about care and building connection and network, but also acceptance. Accept me as me.
The years, 20 plus years that I've been doing the work that I do for community, for mob to be seen, heard and held, which is one of my biggest catchphrases. Partly the reason why we did Mardi Gras this year, the way that we did it, the impact, the statement, everything that we did was because, where communities are now with seeing us and hearing us. And, we've always we're accepted within our immediate families, but as ourselves, they love us because we're mob, but they don't see all of us and all that we are in our queerness, in our blackness, in all of that is encapsulated. Right. So, what we did with Mardi Gras this year was to say that, we are here. We've always been here as queer black fellas,
That's actually, that's so interesting you say that because, I didn't mean to interrupt you then, but I, when I was at university, I was studying a Bachelor of Indigenous Art in Queensland and, I was met with things like, well, you can't play didgeridoo because you're, still got ovaries and you can't do this and you can't do that. And it was like, I felt rejected from my own mob. And it's like I started doing my own research on that, and the more I looked into queerness within mob, we've always existed in this, and that is something that I think is a bit of a stereotype from outsiders. They just go, well this
it's a colonized concept.
It's a colonized concept, 100%.
It was introduced to us,
whether people like it or not. It is a colonized concept, 100%. And I want it to get easier for our mob. We all do. Everybody does, and so should the wider community. That's why we're here today, and that's why we all do the work that we do. We're all passionate about it. So
that's why we need sometimes if we're feeling alone or we don't have people to talk to, we have resources that we can talk to somebody on the phone.
That's right.
Who can at least help us through that crisis moment where no one understands us.
And that's why having an Aboriginal specific crisis line like 13 Yarn, I think, it empowers our people. Things such as QLIFE empower our people as well. You know what I mean? There is support there. And we just want everybody to know that. That's, anyone who's watching this, you can, go on QLIFE's website, go on 13 Yarn's website, find out our numbers, talk to somebody that's, from our community and that understands us as well. Because I know for me, I came out a little later. I came out at 32 or 33, knowing that I was gay my whole life. It wasn't a sort of, I was this age and, I think I'm gay sort of thing. I always knew, always tried to fight it, always tried to hide it. Came to Sydney, met Cameron, fell in love, came out, and had to go back to my hometown was the next step. You know what I mean? I had to go introduce my man to my family, my friends. A lot of people are like, Jai just came out, we've been waiting for you. But there were some people that actually surprised me. Some of my best friends were like, are you gay? Serious? I never knew. So much depression and anxiety and stuff came along with that. You know what I mean? So it's just mental health issues. It's something that's going to take a long time for me to repair up here. You know what I mean? So, and I just hate the thought of anybody else going through that as well.
When you know your family, your mom, and everyone knows everyone, do you think that's what makes it hard for some people to say, hey, I'm gay? or I'm trans because everyone knows everyone's business.
For some,
Yeah,
yes.
for some, yeah.
I've got family members and friends that were like 15 and 16 and started, dressing up and, the boys and the feminine ones and that. And I'm like, you are my hero. I'd be like, I wish I could do what you're doing, but I just didn't have the nerve to at the time. I don't know. It was just, it was
I think
a big
as
journey.
well, on that note, people confuse sexuality and gender as well, because I grew up thinking I was a lesbian because I was a woman previously, and it wasn't until I was 26. I always knew I liked women, but I didn't feel like I was a woman. So I didn't have the language for it back then. I didn't even know what a trans guy was until I met my first trans guy, and I was like, oh, that's what I can be. So I think having representation in the community is so important for people who don't
Very much so.
have anyone to relate to.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, there wasn't any black lesbian women doing what I do. There was nobody that I looked up to. It wasn't until I was older, like in my 30s was when I first started seeing older lesbian women, and it was like, oh, auntie, I'm that auntie now, I'm everybody's auntie Jen, But that's also why I do what I do, is because I want mob to be seen, heard, and held the way that I wasn't,
That's right. And just to be comfortable in our own skin, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like far out.
I've heard stories where there's one woman, who willed herself to die from our community because she was a lesbian and didn't feel she could connect with anybody in that space. And that's always sat with me, that sadness with you wanting to die because you don't want to live in a world, in a space that doesn't understand us. And I think that's why it's so important we have these conversations.
I did want to speak on, are our own mob accepting us? You know what I mean? Like, I guess we just sort of covered that, but did anyone want to sort of talk on that a little further at all?
I guess like going back to university as well, this is the first time I'd been around like mob, because my dad was stolen generation, and we grew up being like, don't talk about it kind of thing. So I had all these stereotypes of what it meant to be Indigenous as well. But when I went to university, I think it's not my job to educate people, but I do like to try and educate people who don't understand it. And once I had a chat with a few of the elders who were straight cis women, they were like, wow, okay, now you've kind of given me a different perspective on things, because before I was like, they had no idea what it meant,
That's it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's about education and awareness, isn't it? And like Sammy said, like some people do, some people don't. Like depends on, what area you're living in, what community. It's the eye of the beholder.
It is that.
Yeah.
It's about just making sure you find yourself a safe space.
Yeah.
And creating families.
Yeah, because I learned from other queer trans mob, and they actually taught me how to be in the world, and that we've always existed in our culture.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think one message I'd like to leave here is to let people realise that let's not fight within our own spaces. When you attack people within our own space, it just allows the outside groups of people to laugh. But you're hurting people. If someone says to you, you start questioning someone's Indigenousness, or you start saying, oh, they're not, they're this or they're this. What are you doing? You're destroying someone. And that's not what our life system's about. We're all different. Some we may not disagree. Some people talk too much. Some people don't. But you need to understand that when you hurt people through miscommunication, or when you ignore people and then you chill them out and you're no longer included in black queer mob spaces, that's soul destroying. When I experienced that time, I never would want any other human being to go through that. Yeah. To be totally called, to be isolated and not believed and have nobody. And thank God there was QLIFE for me, who I rang, and 13 Yarn that believed me, that supported my journey, and virtually, you call it, held my heart to say, just hang in there, it will change. But that's the message to anyone who's listening is, please be strong, be an ally. If you see one of us crying, or they're alone, or someone saying something nasty, call them up on it. Say, hey, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Let the person be who they be.
That's right. Not affecting anyone else, And I guess that's another thing I kind of want to touch on today. Like I spoke briefly before about the depression and the anxiety that came along with it. Like what other types of mental health issues and stuff do we have? Because we're taking our own lives. I've had many times contemplated suicide. You know what I mean? Like and we need that to stop. We're losing brothers and sisters. Like,
I think for our communities and Black Mob, I think come back to the word shame. Do you know that? Yeah. Shame plays a powerful role within our community.
That's why one of our big things with 13 Yarn is there is no shame with us. There's no judgment. You know what I mean? Give us a call if you're ever stressing out.
Well, yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what we're going to break down that word.
Yeah.
Break that word down enough so people know that they don't have to be embarrassed to have a conversation. You can't have it with your family. There are places like 13 Yarn there to have those conversations because that's what it is. It's shame. Everyone's shamed to talk about it, or shame because that person might know black full of grapevine and you know what I mean?
And I still often think, is anyone ashamed to even be associated with me now?
Yeah.
When I go home, like, oh, don't think about that gay boy or whatever. But you know what I mean?
It's just either if they did,
and I can't care less anymore. It's
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. Like even Cam back in the day, if you don't mind me telling the story, but like it wasn't really a conversation you had with Cam about his queerness or anything. Well, no, but he was still a part of our community. And that was it. There was nothing to be said. Because we've all been in his situation.
And I think situations like that, and I know for me personally, you become more comfortable. Is that what happened for you?
Yeah,
like
I was hiding
a few people
from my family, but I had these more than like Richie and all that stuff. So like I was hiding who I was, but you know, I was forced to tell my sister about myself because, you know, me and her got in a big argument and stuff like that. But yeah, like coming out to her was the hardest. Because we were like this.
And you just play these scenarios and what's the repercussions going to be over in your head, don't you?
Yeah, because you're so scared that they're going to reject your own family.
100%.
You know?
And like, because we were so close, like I didn't care about anybody else, but it was just her.
So, you know, we all do come from different walks of life. And sometimes it's just about sitting back and observing because you can see sometimes what's not hard for you can be hard
it might be hard for someone else.
And just having that support system or having, you know, 13 Yarns and QLIFE to have these conversations is probably a better way to
help navigate it.
Yeah, because
that's right.
There's no bias in having that chat as well. You don't know this person, they don't know you. You can let out whatever you want and then still get back and probably feel a little bit better once you're off the phone.
Especially with 13 Yarn, because having a whole workforce who's Indigenous identity helps you. Because even if you don't have family or you do have family, to speak to someone anonymously and say, this is what I'm feeling, and to have somebody on the other side of the phone say, it's okay. I believe you, or I accept you as you are.
Even if it's just like tonality. Black people speak different.
Yeah, it will 100%.
It creates the connection. Sometimes I'll call uncle, sometimes I'll call them aunt, you know, just to show that respect over the phone. But then it also shows them that I'm Mo. And I'm here to help them.
Exactly.
And that creates a safer space for them to just let it out, even if it is swearing and cursing and everything else.
100%.
Growing up in the country, I've copped racism from my school principals and teachers. You know, I was always a fairly good kid and I've had people say, oh, my dad said I'm not allowed to hang around with you anymore. Some of my best friends because you're black. And then I've got in the back of my head, I'm gay, I'm black, I'm gay, I'm double whammy here. Like, God, where am I going to live? Who's going to accept me? Like, send me back to Mars.
Can relate to that, yeah. I grew up in a very small country town in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. So my dad was like in the mining, and my dad's the one who's Indigenous. My mum's white. But I think what I got when I was growing up was, oh, your dad's, you know, the slur for Indigenous. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm not going to say it. But that's what I got thrown at me, was like, I never knew my culture. I never knew. And that's what I got from, I guess, the queer mob that I met, even people like Sammy and stuff, where I got a sense to be able to like talk about who I am, because I always separated being Indigenous and queer or trans, you know? I thought it couldn't be a trans Indigenous person because I never had anyone I met like that before. So I think even having these resources where it can be like, whoa, I'm not the only one out there that exists in the world, that's really important.
That's it.
Can we also say that for anyone who's listening who, like myself, has you know, had attempted to suicide or self-harming as a way of coping through life, that there's no shame, you know, and to reaching out sometimes to like QLIFE through the web chats and the phone and through 13 Yarn, that you can have people to listen to, that it doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're a failure in life. It's just, unfortunately, how you cope, or fortunately, your resilience. And we just need the support. And we need to stop people taking their lives in our community, because every life is valuable. Every life is to contribute. Got to stop the violence and the hate, and allow people to be themselves at any age. And that's why, thankfully, 13 Yarn is here, 24 hours a day. Who'd ever, for anyone listening, if it's at 3 a.m. and you feel you can't go on, at least having a chat, yarn to someone on the phone can maybe help you get you through that crisis hour.
Thank you. And that means a lot, because, so just to reiterate, we've got QLIFE and they have their online web chat. That's 3 p.m. till midnight. They do have their counselling service as well. And then you've got 13 Yarn, which is the 24/7 side of things that is culturally safe for mob as well. So don't forget that, you know what I mean? And we aim to promote more resources, state-based and locally even, moving into the future as well.
Can I say at QLIFE, part of the, we have a First Nations wellbeing steering committee. So we have that input into how QLIFE delivers services to make sure that when we're looking at hiring volunteers, that we encourage more queer mob to come and put their hand up and say, hey, I'd like to be a peer support worker. Or training up the allies from the LGBTIQ community for mob to learn about culture, to learn about understanding. Yes, they'll never get it in terms of being in, but at least having an understanding to unpack their bias, thinking all black people are like this. All black people come from big families. That's not true. Everyone has their own health issues and problems. So I think for both organisations coming together, I see it like hand in hand. Maybe we can save more lives.
So you all think that 13 Yarn is a good new addition as a service for mob?
Oh, definitely.
100%,
It's something that I, refer mob to a lot through work when they come to me. Because Auntie Ginny can't fix everything. There's some things I can do. But it's a referral that I use a lot.
And it's safe too, because if you're not open about being LGBTIQ yet, you don't want to have that. Sometimes to ring 1-3-YARN to know, you're accepting, you could say, I think I'm gay.
And you can go off, down on the riverbank or to the park.
Or using the language
when you're home alone,
feel
like,
safe.
have that yarn.
So that's what I love about 13 Yarn, is that you can be anyone, maybe bisexual or coming out later in life and saying, where do I go? And then maybe you can be directed to QLIFE also.
That's right.
So I see there's a win-win.
And I think also the marketing that 13 Yarn's been doing with the branding and getting out there in communities. I mean, like when I was a young little lesbian, I was kissing girls before I was kissing boys, before I was a teenage mum. And, finding my Lottle magazine was, my best resource. Like 13 Yarn could be in there, like,
I haven't read Lottle in a long time, but I remember it.
What I did want to ask as well is, like, what is the importance of a service such as 13 Yarn and QLIFE? I mean, we've really touched on lots of that, hey, but anybody else sort of want to add?
I even speak to friends now who are still pretty young and scared to come out to their parents, scared to like talk to family in case they get rejected. So I think especially being 24/7, because like what do you say, it could be 3 a.m, could be like 6 a.m. You're like, oh, who am I going to talk to? So just to have someone there to listen to you and like validate your feelings and be like, it's going to be okay and you are accepted and loved, you know? So
especially in those, if there is a moment of crisis or panic for anybody either, it's 3, 4 a.m. or whatever, or if it's just feeling a bit down, lonely, stressed out.
You don't have to be at the point of like, suicide, God forbid, but just even having a yarn to someone is so important, you know?
And especially if there's issues like you have a big family, like a lot of people in our community may have, then you don't want to say that to someone because it's the grapevine. You don't want to get back to the family. Maybe you're going to leave a partner. Maybe you're about to do something that might change everyone's life. If you ring 13 Yarn, at least you can talk to someone anonymously. And that pain inside your head, you feel, at least I've spoken it out to somebody. And that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It can be anonymous as well. You don't have to leave any information.
And we don't even ask it. Our crisis supporters don't even ask.
It makes it safer as well.
I do want to ask too, say a little, say a lot. I might start over your side, Ricky, with you. What do you do for your social and emotional well-being?
What I find has grounded me has been to do with space. And I think maybe it's to do with my heritage. And I wonder if my mum was similar to me, where I love going outside. I connect with the birds. I have a lot of cockatoos that come to
my God, you're so like me. I love
birds. Birds. I feed them. I sit there. I talk to myself, so maybe people think I'm crazy.
I talk to the birds. My partner looks at me sometimes like, you right over there? You into that cockatoo? No.
Yeah. And as you said, Joey, it's about, finding what works for you.
Yes.
And there is times when I have a lot of sadness in my life and pain, but I think that finding a place that I could just be myself around nature, grounded away from the four walls, I have 6 cats, so I live with 6 cats.
Oh my God, adorable.
For me, it's just that, the basic things in life, and I'm hoping one day I connect to my family, my whole family, that they will accept me. But if not, at least I know I've tried, but I always have the birds and the earth, the sun to help me grounded.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I think that's something that mob, I feel like that's something that mob, I love birds. I'm always saying I talk to the birds, I love being out in nature, but I think community, having, because I don't identify as gay or queer. People always think just because you're trans, they think automatically you're lesbian or gay. But I had to relearn how to be, I guess you could say a straight man in the world, because I identified as a lesbian previously. So it was okay, but just being able to, I don't know, have people that you can talk to that understand and don't judge. That's just the basic for me.
Definitely.
Really.
Finding that too, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I guess for myself, when it comes to my own mental health and well-being, I'm a bit of an extrovert, so I like to be out there, I like to be around people. It keeps me, I guess, grounded, but then on the other spectrum of things, I think it can also be very quiet as well, where if things are too quiet at home, you get into my own head.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As a trans woman, sometimes we look at ourselves in the mirror constantly and we feel like we're not enough, or we don't look the way we want to look.
Yeah.
It makes things can sort of feel, but little things, get dressed up. Jared has known me for many years. I don't go out without makeup. Even if it's just to the shop, finding what makes you feel good for yourself.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Because no one's perfect. We're all still trying to grow and survive and do things. But just be yourself. Find the things that make you feel worth it. Is what you need to do to get by. And again, having the right people around you. I don't even speak to Cameron. Again, it could be months, even Jenny. We don't speak for months sometimes, but I know at the ball then. It's just have a yarn whenever I want about anything.
For me, my self-care is going to the pub with my uncle and watching the footy.
And isn't that just the family ties as well, isn't it? Is great
I'm
for you.
the same, footy, but what grounds me is I like to go to the beach. I grew up by the ocean, so my safe space is going to the ocean and just sitting there listening to the waves. That's what keeps me grounded, and that's my safe space.
That's why when we were driving here, I was like, I'd love to be near the water again. It's so beautiful. Just getting out in nature and just getting away from all that noise sometimes. Yeah.
And a pure blonde.
I mean, we talk about alcohol or not?
I'm wearing my BB underwear.
Joel, one thing I would love us to consider for anyone who's listening who is an NDIS person, like myself, I hope that the NDIS people out there, consider putting 13 yarn in plans.
Yeah.
Every person who puts their hand up to identify as Indigenous, it should have that resource.
That's a really good suggestion.
Yeah. Beautiful suggestion.
I want to kind of bring to the table that not everybody has people around them.
Yeah.
Some people with autism like me struggle with personal relationships. It's just something in our heads.
Yeah.
But I need 13 yarn there on my fridge number. So if I'm really struggling, I can ring somebody up. Or if it's sometimes I might ring QLIFE if that's there. But I really wish that every person who's on NDIS Indigenous have that opportunity, so no one is ever truly alone.
That's right. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Can someone contact 13 Yarn? What can you do if you have a mobile but not much credit?
No, you can do it with no credit. You don't have to have credit. It's a free call from any phone.
Oh, that's great.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So, all you mob, thank you for coming again. But for final advice, what would you say to somebody that's struggling?
I literally, since I've got to know the queer trans mob, I love being trans. Like, it's one of my favorite parts about myself. And I would say to anyone out there, be like, just be so proud of who you are and never be scared to like speak up or ask for help. But I think once you get out in the community, you know how deadly and amazing the queer mob is, and there's so much support and love out there. Like, I love being part of this community, and it actually is like one of I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
What about you, Jean?
Pretty much the same, like find your community, find your family, like we're all out there. There's a mob there. You can be loved, you can be heard, you can be seen, you can be held. If not, you can call 13 Yarn.
Hey. No, that's deadly. Yeah.
There's always one person out there that's going to sit there and listen and, will have your back no matter what. No matter if it's your family or not, And don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's mob out there for mob, like 13 Yarn. Call them, have a chat.
There are wonderful people everywhere. It's just about finding your people. Yeah. Once you do, you will be okay.
And always I would say to people, you have within your heart a space, a little speck of gold. If you're feeling alone, if you're feeling that the world is around you so difficult to swallow, reach out. 13 Yarn, QLIFE. It is there to help you, to guide you back to your destiny. We are a culture of survivors. We have survived for so long, and we are still thriving and surviving, although it might be difficult to see sometimes. And that's why having a yarn on the phone with somebody to at least listen and then connect back to yourself, connect to what makes you feel special, and use that energy to guide you through to wellness. Because as a culture, we are connected, interconnected, and we do believe in wellness. Thank you.
Hey, too deadly, mob.
That's so good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Strong Mind, Strong Mob, brought to you by 13 Yarn and QLIFE. Share this episode with a friend or your mob if you found it helpful. Click follow on your podcast app for future episodes. And if you or someone you know are feeling worried or no good, call 13 Yarn on 13 92 76 for a confidential yarn with an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander crisis supporter 24/7. Or if you need support, connect with QLIFE for anonymous and free LGBTIQ+ peer support on 1800 184 527 or via web chat.